All right, it's official. The Browns have signed Jadeveon Clowney. Is signed, sealed, and delivered like he physically in person has signed a contract. It is here. My dream or thing that I've been talking about on this channel for at least 2 years now, of having Jadeveon and Miles play opposite of each other, next to each other sometimes, and sometimes up and above around each other, has finally come to fruition. Now, why am I so excited for that? What do I think the Browns defense can do along with Takk McKinley and Malik Jackson and the other additions to this defense? Well, let's talk about it. But before I get into that, I got to make sure I tell you guys to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified, because I have a ton of content coming out. Always have a ton of content coming out, but also draft live stream watch party. Watch the first 2 nights of the draft along with me. It's going to be fun. I got a bet going with New Stripe City about where Penei Sewell is going to be ending up on the board. If I win that bet, y'all going to see me have a lot of fun on the stream with him. Also, a ton of other things. Let's talk through the draft. Let's talk through the craziness. And then hopefully when the Browns pick at 26 or even before that, maybe they trade up. Who knows what Andrew Berry's going to do? He's a madman at this point, right? They trade up, I'll be there. Check it out with me. First 2 days of the draft live on this channel. So if you don't want to miss that, subscribe, notify so you don't miss it. Also, I got to give a shout out to my patreon.com dog check tier members. And as always, I start with Michael Matique, the most dangerous man in Cleveland, DJ, Marino V, Cleveland Cart, Matt H, Greedy Shoulder, Gemini, Liam Freeman, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo, Magnifico, Rob Ferron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Deveroff, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Brad Cabo, Dylon W, James McGinty, Arinda Hall, Rex Kaufman, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Andrew Sadeo, Dylan Hill, Josh Bendor, Jalil Salim Jr., Martha Crustnut, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Bubbo Regretti, Anthony O, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Batman Rush Sharir, Barack Kumar, John Albert, Beerman 069, Masayua, Buds of Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hurst, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, Keith Anderson, Sean Barron, Goggles Bizano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazillo, Nick Nasty, Ian Williker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Billy, Michael Holdenack, Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, IT Rex, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Kirkabard, Jesus Serrano, Chris Fawn, Pickdown, Browns Backers, Mark Kahn, Johan Hulf, Kevin Johnson, Max Aldojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for the support. It's instrumental to this channel. And again, I hope I see you guys at the live stream. Make sure you're subscribed and notified so you don't miss it. Now, let's talk about Jadeveon Clowney and the other free agent additions to see what they're going to bring to this defense. And to do that, I got to jump into the whiteboard room. So, intro. So it's official. Time to celebrate. The Browns have Jadeveon Clowney, but what does that mean, right? Is that going to mean what people, I think, traditionally think this means? Is that, oh, you have 2 very athletic edge rushers, that they're going to share the field a lot, that they're going to line up a certain way. And I think it's going to be a little bit different because now the Browns on that defensive line, they have a lot of versatility. You have somebody like Malik Jackson who's played inside his entire career, but he's played inside on a 3-4, inside on a 4-3. So he knows all of the interior positions. Same thing with Sheldon Richardson. Sheldon actually played a little bit of edge when everybody got suspended in 2019. So he has a ton of versatility there. And then you have Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. And those are the 2 of the most versatile defensive ends in football because they can line up a number of places. Clowney can actually line up more places, or at least has lined up more places than Myles Garrett. And you also add in that they have a couple of other guys, and right here, Andrew Billings, Takk McKinley, who we're going to talk about too. And we want to see how all of these guys are going to fit into the defensive line rotation. And I think it's going to have a lot to do with alignments because I think there's a lot of interesting things that you can do with this team when it comes to alignment. So let's go to this base alignment. Let me kind of explain why I think this is going to be the case, right? So get rid of Billings and Takk. And the reason I think this is going to be the case is just because Clowney, he's not somebody who really likes to line up here. That's not where he's at his best. He can do it. He loves going inside from here, but you're going to probably want him to be, was it 4-eye, inside shoulder of the tackle, because Clowney's best move is attacking upfield, interior. He does not bend well. He has never bent well. As athletic as he is off the edge, he's never really bent super well. He's had a decent first step pre-knee injuries in Houston, but he's not somebody who's just going to out-athlete somebody around the edge like Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, you'll see him get the edge, turn around, keep his hips parallel, and then almost do like a 90-degree angle on the bend. That's stuff that Myles can do that like he can't do. Another thing you'll see Myles do is start out here at his front side C gap and go all the way to backside A on like if the line shifts over with him. So Myles has a plethora of different rushes that he can use. Jadeveon, you want to keep him inside rushing, right? But for the run game, he can set the edge. He could do that well. But if you're talking about just him getting sacks or pressures as a pass rusher, interior, that's where you're going to really want to use him. What I think is interesting about what the Browns are going to do is that they have a ton of flexibility, right? You can do something like this with Clowney right here, and then you could bring in Tack if you want a 5-man front. Bring Tack outside shoulder. The reason I think this would be effective is because if we go back to the Takk McKinley tape, and I'm going to try to remind myself to put some footage here of Takk McKinley in that tape session that I did against the Cincinnati Bengals. The one thing Tack does really well at this point of his career, at least that he showed that he can do really well, is bull rush on the outside shoulder of a right tackle or left tackle and, force pressure that way. He was so good, in fact, at doing that against Cincinnati that they were forced to put a tight end over his side and chip him when Vic Beasley was on the other side. Now, needless to say, if the opposing team has to dedicate a tight end to the opposite side of Myles Garrett, that is a win for the team, right? That's a absolute win, because either you're putting them in a situation to where they got to have 2 tight ends out there completely dedicated to bumping Myles Garrett and bumping either Jadeveon or Takk McKinley, which leaves them very little flexibility when it comes to their skill position players. And very few teams really have that many tight ends that can block, punch, and receive. So you're putting the offense at a disadvantage that way. Keep in mind the Browns have Malcolm Smith now, hopefully Grant Delpit, Ronnie Harrison, and John Johnson III, all 3 guys who can actually be really athletic and cover some more athletic tight ends. So it just puts offenses really in a bind when you can do something like that, right? When you can have an attack that's going to really be effective against an offensive line to points where you have to give them help. So this is something that you can see. I don't think you'll see this often. I think you might see this maybe in like 1 or 2 games a year. Another way I could see the Browns using Jadeveon is a little bit like this, right? And having him out there technically as a stand-up linebacker, because you go back in his film, he's done this too, where you can have him not next to Myles, and you can definitely do next to Myles. We'll talk about that later on. So have him standing up, clear this gap right here, and then so Jadeveon can shoot through. That's something that I think you'll see a lot, actually. I think you'll be surprised how often we're going to see Jadeveon standing up in this defense and playing a blitzing linebacker. You can also, again, if you want to get, that's another way of getting creative, having a little bit of a 5-man front out here. And then even if you don't want to put Jadeveon out there potentially in coverage, which you don't, which if you're going to line up like this, you're going to have to do so you don't completely give it away. You can have it where Jadeveon still blitzes off this edge and then Myles drops back out, because Myles is at this point a little bit more athletic. He's more capable of dropping out and holding a little coverage zone if he needs to. So there's a lot of versatility that you can use right there. Again, these are things again, when people like look at it, right, and they're like, oh, well, I don't know how much of an upgrade Jadeveon Clowney is from Olivier Vernon. If you're just looking at this as a pure defensive end, like when he's lined up at defensive end, there's an argument to be made there. I don't think it's a great argument, mind you, but I do think there's an argument to be made there. But what people forget and what people don't calculate is Olivier Vernon was not versatile at all in the defense. You could line him up at one place. That's defensive end. He's not an inside-outside guy. He's never been an inside-outside guy. He's definitely never been a stand-up guy. So when you get into situations where you need to be more versatile, you need to be a little bit more creative, you can't do these things with Olivier Vernon. This is why Jadeveon Clowney, if he stays healthy, and again, that's the onus, if he stays healthy, is so much more helpful to this defensive line than a healthy Olivier Vernon, because he can move around, because he could do stuff like this. He can kind of be a Swiss Army knife, almost what I think they envision, and this is back in like 2015, I think, of what the Browns envision, and this is a whole different regime, when they got like a Jamie Collins and how you could use Jamie Collins off the edge and as a stand-up linebacker and coverage and everything else. It's kind of what they envision, but it's kind of more to fruition because, again, Jadeveon's done this. Another very interesting alignment they can have here is Miles next to Jadeveon, and you could do a ton of things here, right? This offensive tackle, he's going to be very concerned about these kind of alignments because you can stunt this where Jadeveon just sets the edge and then Miles tries to go, backside here. And it's just a lot you can do versatility wise with these guys, even with Malik Jackson out there, who's going to be a good pass rusher. So you can have these kind of alignments when it comes to this team this year where where offensive lines ain't gonna know who's gonna be out there, but this is a great pass rushing alignment if you want it. You can add Billings out there, right, when you want a run stopping kind of alignment, and have Sheldon Richardson out there instead of Malik Jackson. Take Tack off the field, take Malik off the field, and then you can have Clowney set the edge with Myles Garrett. It's going to be something you see a lot probably during against the Ravens or something like that. A ton of versatility here if the Browns want to use it. I'm excited about how many different ways this team can line up. You can do so many different things. If you really even wanted to, right? You could put Clowney as a stand-up maybe right here and have Clowney crash down to try to take the mesh point off while having Miles kind of hover around here, setting the edge to kind of stop some of that triple option stuff that the Ravens like to run. There's a ton. There's a ton that you could do here. This is why I'm excited. And this is why, when people talk about Olivier Vernon, this being an upgrade over Olivier Vernon, or whether I think it's kind of a misplaced conversation because, again, Olivier Vernon, what he can bring to this team is one thing. With Jadeveon, if he's healthy, what he brings to his team is like 3 or 4 different things because of the versatility in the areas that he can line up. Again, he's lined up at linebacker and done that successfully. He's lined up as a 3-4 and as a 4-3 and just done that successfully. He's lined up as a 3-tech and has done that successfully. He can do a lot of different things on the field. And when you match that with Myles Garrett and other guys, like even Tack McKinley can go inside, outside a little bit. It's not his strength, but he can do it a little bit. But when you have all this versatility out there, it puts you in a great place where you can do all kind of different rushes of this defensive line, all kind of things, especially when you got a guy like Myles Garrett who can bend a corner in a 90-degree angle or go from his front side C to his A in like 2 seconds if he wants to. So that is why I have been pounding the table for the Browns to sign Jadeveon Clowney for the last 2 years, because I think that versatility that he brings to a defensive line, if he can stay healthy, and again, it's a big if, he hasn't been healthy in a couple of years, but if he can stay healthy, this defensive line is versatile enough, is talented enough to be dominant. And that should be terrifying to other teams because the linebacking room is fine. I'm in that DB room, right? They could add another corner in the draft, right? What if they get J.C. Horn? That would be crazy. But you got Denzel Ward already. You already signed John Johnson III. You have Grant Delpit, who you really believe in, who looks good right now off his rehab. You have Ronnie Harrison. You have Greedy Williams. You have Troy Hill. You have guys that are back there that can cover and defend. And if this defensive line gets the benefit of good coverage behind it, like it should, right? This is not a coverage unit like last year where teams could just be eager to want to throw into it. So the pass rush kind of got negated because of that, because teams were like not afraid of what the Browns could do to them in coverage. Now teams ain't going to be so eager to do quick throws into that secondary, which means they're going to hold this ball a little bit longer. And if they hold this ball a little bit longer and this defensive line can be healthy and play to its potential, then there's not a lot of defenses can do, especially given Jadeveon's strength is against the run. So even if they want to go away from the passing game, don't want to give Myles Garrett that extra time, or Malik Jackson or Jadeveon Clowney the extra time to get there. Okay, you want to run the ball, but what side are you really running the ball to? Because you ain't running towards Myles, and you definitely don't want to run towards Jadeveon. Maybe you want to go inside, but now the Browns have Andrew Billings. They also have Malik Jackson, who are better run-stop fits. Sheldon Richardson's always been a decent run defender. You also got Taki, who's underrated, his ability to stop the run. Anthony Walker's a good run defending linebacker. So there's really no great option to attack this team. Whereas last year, there were a plethora of great options to attack this defense, right? We talked about Sadeho being a big target. We talked about the slot corner being a great target throughout the year. And then when you had Denzel Ward go down and everything else, Robert Jackson became a target. A lot of areas of attack on this defense last year that just aren't there if this team stays healthy. And that's why I'm excited about this, right? The defensive line being there, linebacking room has already kind of been addressed. And then you have this back end of this secondary. Even if Greedy is the other boundary corner, right? And we don't know how good Greedy's going to be at this point, but that's still fine when you have Denzel Ward, when you have the safeties that you do. You got Grant Delpit. You could do a lot of things there to protect Greedy if he's not ready to go, or if he's ready to live up to his potential as a second-round pick. You're golden, right? You can always get some depth in the draft. So this defense has had a 180-degree change in its level of versatility in this offseason. I think that's going to be the number one thing that's going to be key. And now on top of having an offense that had already been giving defensive coordinators headaches, this situation in the defensive line alone, with what the Browns added in the back end, it's given offensive coordinators in the AFC North headaches. That's not something they are looking forward to seeing or having to play against. So this is why I think this is such a great signing. This is why I think Andrew Berry has done a great job overhauling this defense this year. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.